Radiant and Resilient is about mindset and faith to break paradigms and overcome challenges in our life. Because when the mind, body, and spirit are aligned, we literally radiate from the inside out. I'm Kay Vasquez. Let's dive in.
If you've been listening to my podcast, Radiant and Resilient, I'm sure you've been following along my journey as I started this podcast while pregnant and talked a little bit about my journey in the first trimester, my experience, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, as well as my struggles in the second trimester. And so I want to continue in this episode because what I've realized is that no matter how much you learn about the body, having a background in Western medicine as a physician assistant and then becoming a functional medicine practitioner, I thought I was well prepared, well equipped to have an easy pregnancy. But that just goes to show, no matter how much we know and how much we try to control, things are still going to happen that are outside of our control. And so I want to share what happened at the end of the second trimester as I started to transition into the third trimester. I was experiencing some brain fog. I was feeling foggy and groggy, so also a little bit of fatigue. I noticed that when I was working out, I was starting to feel a little bit short of breath. And yes, my belly was growing, but I thought that maybe this was just part of the process, right? This is just what was supposed to happen, especially as you get later on into pregnancy. So I was feeling foggy, groggy, brain fog, fatigue, a little shortness of breath. And I was still focusing on doing the basics, eating healthy, eating whole, organic foods as much as possible. So good, clean sources of protein, organic chicken that doesn't have hormones and antibiotics, organic pasture-raised eggs without antibiotics, hormones, wild-caught fish, organic vegetables, fruits as much as possible with healthy fats like avocado, nuts, seeds, some carbs from quinoa and sweet potatoes, red potatoes, things like that. So I'm focusing on eating good quality foods. I'm focusing on getting good quality sleep. So I'm able to sleep 8.5 hours. Yes, I have to get up once in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, but overall I'm able to fall asleep. I don't really experience pregnancy insomnia, and that's because I take a lot of magnesium at night, but I also wind down before bedtime. I stop eating before bedtime and make sure that my body stays cool. So if you want to learn more about getting good quality sleep, I have a post on Instagram that talks about the 5 different steps, and you can also go back and listen to my episode on getting good quality quantity sleep. But I'm doing all the right things. I'm taking my supplements, and I'm still working out, exercising, so I couldn't figure out where this was coming from. Thank goodness I am working with a midwife. My goal is to have a supernatural birth at home, and in order to do that, I'm working with a midwife. And I'm so grateful for her because she checked my ferritin level at the end of the second trimester. This is why it's so important to look at the physical side of things. So when we're experiencing different symptoms, no matter what stage of life we're in, especially as women, whether we are in our 20s and we have periods, or we're focusing on the prenatal stage, getting ready to boost our fertility, support our fertility so we can conceive, whether we're in pregnancy, postpartum, even menopause, it's so important that we're constantly checking the physical side of things, getting lab testing done. And I cannot stress this enough because just focusing on the basics, focusing on our lifestyle factors, our food, exercise, sleep, etc., sometimes isn't enough, and especially when it comes to nutrients. And so there are specific nutrients that I recommend getting checked in pregnancy. B vitamins, especially B12, folate, so important. Magnesium, zinc, omegas, omega-3s, but also our iron levels, but not just iron. And I made the mistake of not having my OB initially check my iron and ferritin levels. She checked my iron levels, and in the first trimester, iron levels were normal. So when my midwife checked my ferritin levels at the end of the second trimester, I was surprised that it actually came back really low. To put it in perspective, ferritin optimal range for fertility and pregnancy is greater than 50. My level was at 14. But I have no idea what it was in the first trimester, even though my iron levels were normal. I wish I had thought of ferritin, but I also was experiencing the effects of pregnancy brain in the first trimester, where I wasn't thinking as clearly because the brain is going through so many changes. And I talk a little bit about that in the episode of what happened in the first trimester. This is why it's so important to work with a practitioner, whether it's midwife, an OB, functional medicine practitioner, to get your levels checked. So when my levels came back low, my ferritin was at a 14, which is really, really low. It made sense why I was experiencing what I was experiencing. So I started on a plant-based iron supplement, and within a couple of weeks, the brain fog lifted, the fatigue lifted, the shortness of breath went away. Overall, started to feel better. Now, I still didn't have my creativity back. My brain wasn't firing in the way that it normally fires. I still was forgetting just simple things, the names of certain people and certain things that I normally know I was forgetting. And it's just funny because, if you've ever been pregnant, just experiencing the effects of pregnancy brain, right? So iron doesn't really get rid of that because, again, just there's structural changes that are happening in the brain, which is a result of that. But there's still things we can do to support the body, at least from a nutrient standpoint. So I cannot stress enough the importance of ferritin, getting your ferritin levels checked. So what is ferritin? Ferritin is actually the storage of iron. So even though you can have normal iron levels, if your storage is low, it can still have an effect. And in other women, it can also cause hair loss. It can cause insomnia. It can cause other issues. For me, I felt the brain fog, the fatigue, and shortness of breath. That was my main symptom. And once I started the iron, all those symptoms went away. And so it made pregnancy that much more enjoyable, to be able to still be active, to still get things done in a day. I share this with you because it's so important to work with a practitioner who's getting everything checked, because we may think that we're getting the nutrients that our body needs. And before I even got pregnant, my ferritin levels were always above 50. They were always within optimal range. So I was surprised that my ferritin levels had dropped so low, but then I also was not surprised because I'm creating a life inside of me. And the body requires a lot of nutrients. Even though I'm eating really healthy and there's iron in a lot of the foods that I'm eating, it just still wasn't enough to supplement what my body needed, because our body needs so much more in pregnancy. If you are currently pregnant or you know someone who is, please share this episode with them. Get the nutrient levels checked. Again, I definitely recommend checking B vitamins, B12, folate, magnesium, iron, and ferritin levels, omegas, zinc, but also vitamin D as well. Vitamin D is also really important for our brain, our bones, and lastly, iodine, if you can. I've requested iodine for my OB and midwife, but unfortunately they've never had the tubes to draw it. But if you work with a functional medicine practitioner, they can get you the tests to be able to check for iodine. And the reason why I requested iodine is because when they checked my thyroid, TSH, free T3, free T4, which are at least the most important ones to check. Not all practitioners check those, but you want at least TSH, free T3, free T4. My T3 was suboptimal, meaning it was less than 3. And optimal range is 3 to 4. So I was curious what my iodine levels were, because I've had low iodine in the past. Low iodine can also cause fatigue and brain fog. So a lot of very similar symptoms. Low B vitamins, low magnesium can also cause a lot of the same symptoms. So when we are experiencing symptoms like brain fog and fatigue, yes, nutrients can definitely play a role. So getting your nutrients checked is one of the first things I always recommend with my clients. And the next thing is, if everything looks normal, it's in not just normal range, but optimal range. And this is why working with a functional medicine practitioner is key, because when my ferritin levels were rechecked It went up to 24, but it's still not optimal. The midwife said, okay, it's in normal range. Well, yes, it's in normal range. Yes, I feel a little bit better, but it's not optimal. So I've increased my intake of iron because I want to get to optimal, because I know the effects it has, not just on my body, but also my baby. They need the nutrients. And this is, again, why it's so important to work with a functional medicine practitioner, because we don't want just normal. We want optimal. We want you to feel your best, and you can feel your best no matter what stage of life you're in. Whether you are just wanting to have regular, normal, healthy periods, whether you're focusing on optimizing your fertility so you can conceive, or you're pregnant and just want to feel your best, and then postpartum. That's going to be a whole nother journey, which I'm sure I'm going to share with you as well. The things that I learned, because again, like, no matter how much I've learned, I'm sure things are going to happen that's going to teach me so much that I am excited to just share with you as we continue this journey together. So in the meantime, see a functional medicine practitioner, get your nutrients checked, but also make sure there's not a mental, emotional, spiritual component as well. Because even though my iron levels have come up as I continue into the third trimester, I notice sometimes the fatigue and the brain fog will come back, but it's also mental, emotional, spiritual. So the main takeaway of this episode was to just educate you on the importance of getting your nutrients checked, but working with someone who doesn't look at just normal. They look at the optimal levels, because that is the goal, to get you to optimal so you feel your best no matter what stage of life you're in. If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a message on Instagram. And if you're in one of those stages and you want a deeper dive to actually look at the body, look at the different nutrients, you're doing all the right things, but still you're experiencing certain symptoms, whether you want to optimize your health, your hormones, your periods, whether you're looking to conceive, whether you're currently pregnant or in postpartum, let's chat. I'd love to hear more from you, see how I can help support you, because you deserve to feel your best. So book a complimentary connection call and we'll dive in and go from there. Until then, tune in to the next episode as I continue sharing my journey and experience in the third trimester as I wait for the arrival of baby Vasquez.